Hi there. I'm Pete Hammond here for Half Hour With, and today a very special film, an Academy Award nominated film for Best Documentary Short. It is called All the Empty Rooms, and it is a must see if you haven't seen it yet. And I guarantee you it will be a rewarding experience. We're really happy here today to have its director and producer and Academy Award nominee. Actually, he was nominated once before in 2023 for another film that he did, and this time again, and quite a celebrated career in making movies, not just documentaries, but also narrative films as well, War Incorporated and others. This is Joshua Seftel. Hi, Joshua.
Hi, Pete. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And you probably know this guy, very familiar face at CBS News, CBS Evening News, CBS Sunday Morning, a long career doing what they say is feel good stories or human interest stories on the road every Friday night on the CBS Evening News and then again on Sunday morning. And he is a subject in this film as well. It exists because of him, and so many things to talk about with Steve Hartman. Hi, Steve.
Hi, thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely, and thanks for making this film. And Joshua, I want you to explain though, because we've seen this on television on CBS. We saw Steve's reports here, which were amazing. And I believe Steve had the idea to come to you and turn this into a documentary film. Can you just give us a little background on how it came about as a feature, a documentary feature film here?
Sure. Yeah, I was so in 2023, as you said, I was nominated for an Oscar for Stranger at the Gate, and Steve was watching the broadcast, and I guess he saw me, and we hadn't spoken in 25 years, but we knew each other at the beginnings of both of our careers, because I was actually his producer for the first year of his career, the first few pieces he ever did, and we had fallen out of touch. But he called me the next day after the Oscars, and he said he told me about this project he was doing where he had written a letter to just about every single family who had lost a child to a school shooting since Sandy Hook. And he explained that in the letter he asked them if he could come to their home with a photographer and take photographs of their child's empty bedroom. And he said that, to his surprise, he was getting yeses, and he had cultivated even some of the photographs, and he shared one with me, which was a picture of a child's bathroom adjacent to their bedroom with a toothpaste tube with the cap left off. And I immediately just felt a connection to it because I could feel the presence of a life of the child, who had rushed to school to, brush their teeth, left the cap off, said, I'll put that on later, and went to school and never came home again. And there was a story in the photo. And I immediately just thought, this is such an interesting way to reframe the issue of gun violence, of school shootings, away from politics and toward the actual human cost
Yeah.
and toward the lives that are lost because we forget about that. And so I said to Steve, I think there's a documentary here. And Steve's reaction was, well, that's good, let's do it, but I don't want to be in it. And my reaction was, no, you have to be in it because people trust you, and you're the one who's going to take us on this journey. You're the one that's going to hold our hand and bring us through this world and make sense of it with us. And luckily he agreed to be on camera and to be in the film. And that was 3 years ago. And 3 years later, the film was this little indie film that we made that was acquired by Netflix at Telluride this past year, and is now nominated for an Oscar. And we're just really grateful that these stories of the families of these children and their parents is reaching so many people now.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Steve, when he says 3 years, you've been working on this personally for what, about seven or something like that?
Yeah, I started this and I did not tell CBS News what I was doing. I did this in secret, mostly because it was really off brand for me. As you said, I did the feel good, heartwarming type stories, and this was such a radical departure. I was worried my bosses would say no, so I just kind of did it on my own. Better to ask forgiveness than permission kind of thing. And yeah, I started just reaching out to the families and saying, don't know what I'm going to do with these pictures, but I think, the story needs to be told. Um, I felt like America was growing numb to this whole school shooting tragedy. I knew I was growing numb to it because there were so many, they were blending together, and I felt like we needed something to shake us out of that numbness. And I thought this project was it, but I didn't know what direction it would go, and that's why I called Josh that day.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a look here at the trailer on Netflix, and you can see this film on Netflix now. It is currently running there. And I should mention too, it's in theaters. It's in movie theaters right now. It's doing really well. The Roadside Attractions has released all the shorts as part of a package that's gone around to various cities and theaters, and they started last weekend and doing great too. So if you want to see it on the big screen, you can do that as well, or on Netflix, or check out the trailer right now for All the Empty Rooms.
Hi.
I've been typecast as, the feel-good, happy news kind of guy. And what I'd been doing is just whitewashing the whole thing. I felt like, I've got to do something different. What could I do?
It's interesting how memory works. What you want is something that you can't have.
Hey girlfriend, it's a lovely day.
Her room, no, that was her safe place.
When that time comes that room is not there, does she go away?
Do you go in there a lot?
Oh, yeah, a lot. Every day I tell her good morning, and every night I tell her good night.
I wish that we could transport all Americans to stand in one of those bedrooms for just a few minutes. We'd be a different America.
Steve, Joshua said you were reluctant. You didn't want to be in this documentary short. And I thought when I saw it that you had to be in it. It was so important that it became not just what you showed in your report, in your own report, but yourself as the person driving this and the need for that. And I thought the blending of that made this unique among itself as a documentary taking off on what you've done.
Yeah, not in hindsight, I can now see why that was important to Josh. I don't know, just as a journalist, your instinct is to not be part of the story. I wanted the focus to be on the parents, and the focus still is on the parents. And I get now why it had to go down the way it went down. But I'm really glad that, it's not really about me. People are kind of traveling with me, I guess. And I'm glad that I was a part of it. I don't know if I ever want to be that, involved, on camera in a story again. But, in the end, all that really matters is that people see the film, that the message gets out there, and, that the film is successful.
So, Joshua, in structuring this film, you're going in kind of picking it up as it's going along. His last three visits, you decide to start at that point with the film. How did you structure this to make it work the way you wanted here?
Well, yeah, there were there's 4 rooms in the film because there's one at the very beginning. Uh, and those were the last 4 rooms that Steve did. So we just followed him for the final year or so of the project. And the way that I always thought about it was it's kind of a road trip film. And you go on this trip with Steve and Lou. They are your companions.
That's Lou Bopp, who's the photographer, and he's a major part of it, of just taking these still photos.
That's right. And so you go on this road trip to these different rooms and as a viewer, you get to enter these spaces and to learn about the lives of these 4 children. And that was the that was the experience we wanted to give people. Uh we want people to, as Steve said in the trailer, we want people to feel what it's like to be in these rooms and to understand the loss and understand the absence that these families feel. And we think that's very relatable thing. And our hope is that if people feel the weight of this crisis, if people feel the loss, that they'll feel reconnected to an issue that perhaps some of us have become numb to, and that we'll feel and remember that school shootings should not be a normal thing. It's not normal. It's not okay. There are over 100 school shootings a year now in the US. And I think we've reached a point where it's hard to even process anymore. And so by bringing it down to the very most human level, we hope that people can reconnect.
And I think you do. And I think I look at school shootings, I was getting numb to them too, like Steve was talking about. Okay, another one. It's this is just it. And this is what kids go through now. And they go through the drills, and that's life here now. When you see the human story told and you see another school shooting, what you think of now, or what I think of, is more empty bedrooms, more people, more kids not coming home. That human story, Steve, that you've managed to tell here in taking on this project, 7 years ago, and contacting all of these parents and things. What was that like? What kind of response did you get in general from them, or what did you expect to get? I mean, it's a very, you're walking into territory unknown here.
Yeah, and it was a huge ask. When I sent out the first batch of letters, I was somewhat convinced that nobody would respond because the ask was too large. To many of the families, and I knew this going in, the bedrooms are sacred territory. Sometimes close family and friends are not even allowed in there. I hear sometimes the doors kept locked even. So, just even asking, can we go in, let alone take pictures, let alone, publish them and put them out there for the world. I didn't know what people would say. And in the end, I would say of all the letters we sent out, most, went unanswered, and that was to be expected. Got some responses from people who had, the room isn't as it was, and that wasn't really of interest to me. I wanted to capture the room as it was the day the child left for school. But in the end, there were 8 families who, for different reasons, some I suppose had an agenda and some did not. But universally, everyone who did agree, they don't want these lives to go away. They don't want to lose their child, and everybody forget, who their child was. And if some good can come from it all. That was the other thing that the families who agreed, mentioned as a reason for letting us in. But it did take a huge amount of trust. I don't know what I would have done if some reporter had reached out to me and I was in that situation. I don't know if I have that much trust in anybody, but they did trust us, and I'm so grateful that they did. And the film that Josh made, it's brilliant. Well, Pete, it's brilliant. It's brilliantly done, and I'm so glad for the families that something I asked them to be a part of. We in the end delivered something that they can be proud of too.
Yeah, it's definitely on those levels. And when you're talking about the families, Joshua, I noticed at the end credits, there's quite a number of consulting producer credits and other things, and some of them I know parents of school shooting victims as well. Can you talk about the cooperation that you got in terms of that making this film and that led to them being credited on the film as well?
Yeah, I mean, we understood going into this that we were taking on a huge responsibility, that this film and this subject matter is extremely important. Um, and the subject matter is extremely important. And there are a lot of people who know a lot more about this subject than we do. And so from the very start, I surrounded myself and my team with people who are very knowledgeable, who are working in this space, who've maybe even experienced loss, the loss of a child. We had parents advising us, we had trauma surgeons advising us, people in who are working in advocacy for change advising us, so that we told a story that would be respectful and useful. And that was very important to us because we wanted to do it right. And so we built a team and we sort of, they say it takes a village. We built a little village of people from advocates to parents to other filmmakers who care deeply about this issue, and we surrounded ourselves with them, and we worked in a very much a team like fashion. And I think that, in my opinion, that helped us to make a better film.
Yeah. Can you talk about the Netflix coming in to Telluride? You showed this, premiered it. I was at Telluride. You premiered this movie there, and then you get an offer from Netflix because when something appears on Netflix, it's global. It goes around the world. This is a huge audience that documentaries don't often get the chance to have,
Yeah.
and how
Especially
important was that?
especially these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made this film independently. We started out using credit cards, and eventually we were able to raise a little bit of money. Um, and our hope and our dream was that as many people as possible could see this film. That's the point of it. The point is to share the stories of these children because we think that seeing these rooms and understanding the lives of these children could create change. And so right before Telluride, we showed the film to Netflix, and we were there was an interest, and so by the time we got to Telluride, it was turning into a commitment from Netflix, and so the timing was sort of perfect because that was our world premiere, and to know that Netflix was committed to putting this film out, not just in our country, but I don't even know how many, it's over 100. I know it's 37 languages. I'm not sure how many countries, but it's a lot.
Wow.
It was just a dream come true for us. And I think for the families who participated in the film to know that the stories of their children and their experience would reach so many people. That's what we promised them when we came to them, that we would do everything we could to make sure this film was seen. And so to have that kind of commitment from a distributor like Netflix was just amazing for everyone involved.
How does that make you feel, Steve? As somebody who started out alone, maybe in your own bedroom, with this idea and that hoping, to see something and then to get it on this level.
It's unbelievable. It's just absolutely unbelievable that this ride has taken us here. And I'm just so happy for the parents that agreed to be part of this, that their child will be known far and wide, and that we have a chance. I'm still a little bit pessimistic about moving the needle, What gives me hope is this film it has no agenda to it. There's no mention of guns in the film. It's really just an attempt to restore some empathy in the nation and to serve as a starting point. And so, if enough people see it, maybe perhaps if enough Congress people see it, it can be a reset, and maybe it will lead to some change. And if that happened, it would be the most important thing that ever happened in my career, and one of the most important things in the nation. I'm still pessimistic. I don't have rose-colored glasses, but it's for Josh and I, the best shot we could ever give it.
Yeah, and at Telluride, you were going around and you had to introduce screenings and things, and that's interesting kind of festival to do because you're going to get instant reaction. What was your experience there in showing the film for the first time to people?
You know, Compliments are a weird thing, especially when it comes to this film, because, even when there's applause, it just feels awkward. Like this is not something that deserves applause. Nobody involved in this film did it for any kind of applause or any kind of thank you or anything. So, anytime somebody says, great film, so proud of you, I, I kind of, I don't know, I deflect it. I don't know what to do with it. But there certainly has been a lot of that. Let me put it that way. There's been a lot of deflecting going on.
Yeah. Joshua, you've worked in all kinds of different film forms and things. Why was the because the Oscars are where this is nominated is one place that honors shorts, and shorts can be effective. They used to show them with the main features all the time in Hollywood history, and then they sort of stopped. And but this format for this story, I'm just wondering why you thought it was just right to do it as a puck short.
Well, we've been making shorts the last several years, and I've seen that they can have quite an impact and quite a reach. You don't make a short to make money. There's not much ROI on a short, but you can make a short to create change. That's what I believe. It's easy for people to watch it. It's great for programming where you watch a short and then you have a conversation. It's the perfect length to have an evening where you could really have a robust conversation afterwards. And that's what we've been doing. We've been traveling the country and the world with this film and having those screenings and having those conversations and often having people in the room who are experts on the issue. Because what happens when we show the film is that invariably people in the audience, when the film is over, they raise their hand and they say, "What can I do? I want to help." And we are there to catch them and to say, talk to this person here. This is what we're doing. This is what you can do. And that's been amazing. And we've, reached thousands and thousands of people in person in rooms with this format of the short film.
And finally, at Half Hour With, we always ask the question, is there anything else you'd like to say to get people to watch this film or what they might glean from watching it before we go? Joshua?
Yeah, I mean, we know that the reason that the parents participated in this film, the four families that shared the lives of their children, we know that the reason they did it is because they want the world to know their child. They want the world to not forget who their child was. That's their mission in life. And in a sense, I feel like we owe it to them to watch this film. These parents who lost a child to a school shooting, we owe it to them to take 34 minutes and watch this and understand what is being lost in the face of gun violence. I just think it's a small ask, and I hope that people can take the time to do that.
And Steve, this is full circle for you, this moment here of this thing. So anything?
Yeah, I would just say that, we owe it to the families who opened up their homes and opened up those bedroom doors to us to step inside and to look around. And I hope people watch the film because if enough people stand in those rooms and look around at all four walls, I think that we'll come out of this with a possible solution.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Again, this is on Netflix right now. You can see it. And thank you, Steve. Thank you, Joshua, for joining us on Half Hour With.
Thank you.